we live in an age where, we want instant gratification. And kids are no different than adults. They want instant gratification for their anxiety. They want instant relief from their depression. They want instant relief from any type of emotion or thought or memory that's disturbing to them. And we just are not built to be able to use some of the skills that we know would work, that require like meditation, cognitive reframing, all of these skills that require a lot of practice, but we know that they work and they take time. We're just not built to want to do those. We want relief right now, and kids are no different. They want relief right now.
Is
So
that an evolutionary thing?
I think it's always been there. I mean, nobody likes to feel pain. Nobody likes to have, disturbing thoughts or emotions or memories that upset us. We want to run away from them. We want to get away from them. And I think that's normal. The problem is that we're not willing to take the time to learn the skills to deal with those issues in a more healthy way, because they take time, they take practice. We want instant gratification. Well, how do you get instant gratification? Comes through a drug. Maybe it's a prescribed drug. Maybe it's a street drug. Um, but you ask an important question. What are we doing wrong when it comes to these kids? Well, what we're doing wrong is we're not educating them. You know, we're still we're still dragging them
Yeah.
into assemblies at
Come on,
school.
Rick. Just
And
say no is super effective, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, just say no. Yeah, works good for sex too,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
Just say
yeah.
no. Yeah, that crap never worked in the first
Yep.
place. It's
The
not
only
working
form of
today.
safe sex is abstinence, right?
Yeah,
The only
right.
form.
So, so when I was working with these teenagers, it didn't do me any good to tell them the drug was illegal. It didn't do me any good to tell them that if they continue to use, their grades might drop, they might not graduate, they might not get into college, they might not get a job. They didn't care because they didn't believe any of that stuff. But what did capture their attention? It was the neuroscience. When I started to talk to them about their brain, and I started to educate them about the vulnerability in the brain, that they were interested in, that captured their attention. So I would show them a picture of a brain. I show them what the different areas of the brain do. You have an area of the brain that helps you talk. You have an area of the brain that helps you walk. You have an area of the brain that helps you process information. Then I showed them that same picture of the brain and where marijuana attaches itself to in the brain. And that caught their attention because that showed them what marijuana does in their brain. And I have a picture of that in my book. But what I'm getting at is, if you want to get to these kids, lecturing them about the legal aspects is not going to work. Talk to them about the neuroscience, educate them about the neuroscience, and then help them to understand how these drugs work in the brain and the importance of protecting the brain. They're more likely to be interested in that than if you give them a lecture about how they're going to go to jail.
That's just so interesting. And something I actually really relate to as well. I feel like over the years that I've read books and everything, and just for example, one of the first books that really hit me was the book. It was a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. She just really talks about how just really the only consistent measurement of success really ever was consistency in the face of everything. And that story really became even more impactful for me when I learned about, for example, how neural pathways in the brain form and how, the circuitry in our brain, the more you use a certain neural path, the more myelination happens. And how myelination, that mylar sheath, or myelin sheath around your circuitry actually allows for electricity to flow easier. And well, like the electricity is just like us, we're going to go where there's least resistance. So it's just super interesting. And I only came into that during really adulthood. But if someone had brought that to me as a teenager, gosh, I do think I would have just eaten that up. How do they usually respond to that?
They respond very favorably when I was working with them. Like I was saying, it didn't do me any good to tell them this stuff was illegal or bad for them. They didn't care to listen to that. But they were interested in their brain. They were interested in how their brain works, and they were interested in how these drugs work within the brain. And you could almost see, their interest peak up. And because they were learning things that they didn't know about the brain, and they were learning what drugs do to the brain. And that caught their attention. And some of them actually started to reconsider whether or not they wanted to continue using the substance. Some of them would say, okay, I'm going to get off of this stuff for 6 months and see how things go. Some of them said I'd get off for a little while. But at least it got them to the point of beginning to think, what is this stuff doing to me that I don't know about? What's going on in my brain? And maybe I should really reconsider what I'm doing here.